Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to discuss the topic, what type of offering does God accept? Often, people tend to think that the bigger the offering they make, the more they will be blessed. But is that really the case? Let's explore this topic and see what the Bible has to say. The first thing we need to understand is that God does not necessarily honor the most generous offering. We may think that God will be pleased with us if we give a large sum of money or a valuable gift to the church, but that's not always the case. In fact, the Bible shows us that God values the heart behind the offering more than the amount itself. For example, in Genesis chapter 4, verses 3 to 7, we see that God was pleased with Abel's offering, but not with Cain's, even though Cain's offering was larger. The difference was in the heart behind the offering. Abel gave his best, while Cain did not give with the right attitude. Similarly, in 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 7, God tells Samuel, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." God sees the intentions and motivations behind our giving, and that's what matters to Him. Generous giving honors God, but generosity is not measured in donation totals. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 7, it says, "Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." This verse emphasizes that God values the attitude of the giver more than the amount of the gift. Furthermore, Christ teaches us in Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, that we should not give to be seen by others or to receive recognition or reward. Instead, our giving should be done in secret with a pure heart and for the purpose of pleasing God, not people. In other words, our giving should not be motivated by a desire to impress others or to gain favor with God, but rather it should flow from a heart of gratitude, love and obedience to God. As we give generously and cheerfully from the heart, we honor God and demonstrate our trust in His provision and goodness. The person who gives the most money is not necessarily the most generous person. In Mark chapter 12, verses 41 to 44, Christ observes people putting money into the temple treasury. Many rich people put in large amounts, but a poor widow put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a few cents. Christ then said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." This story illustrates that generosity is not about the amount of money we give, but the sacrifice we make. The rich people gave out of their abundance, but the poor widow gave sacrificially. She gave all she had, trusting in God's provision and goodness. This kind of giving reflects a heart that is focused on God, not on material possessions or personal gain. In addition, in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 12 to 15, Paul encourages the Corinthians to give according to what they have, not according to what they do not have. He emphasizes that God does not want anyone to suffer hardship because of their giving. This passage shows that God values our willingness to give what we can, even if it is not a large amount, and that He does not want us to give beyond our means or to cause ourselves financial hardship. Generosity is measured in attitude and spirit. In Mark chapter 12, verses 41 to 44, we see the poor widow's attitude of giving everything she had. She did not give reluctantly or out of compulsion, but out of a heart of love and trust in God. In 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 2 to 3, Paul talks about the Macedonian church's generosity, saying, in the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability. These verses show that generosity is not just about giving money, but about having the right attitude and spirit of giving. Generous giving flows from a heart that is filled with joy, gratitude, and a desire to bless others. It is not driven by a desire for personal gain or recognition, but by a desire to honor God and serve others. Furthermore, in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 to 8, Paul reminds us that God loves a cheerful giver and promises to bless those who give generously. He says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. For God loves a cheerful giver, and God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. In other words, when we give generously with the right attitude and spirit, we can trust that God will bless us abundantly and provide for all our needs. Our generosity becomes an act of worship and obedience to God, reflecting His love and grace to others. In conclusion, God values the heart behind the offering more than the amount itself. Generosity is not measured in donation totals, but in the attitude and spirit of the giver. So let us give cheerfully and sacrificially, not to gain God's favor, but as an act of worship and obedience to Him. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you.